Hey Carefree Cooks everywhere, Chef Todd back with you. Do you know what this is? Look at that. Do you know what this is? This is thyme. This is thyme in a little cube. There's probably an hour crammed into this one little cube, and the reason that I wanted to jump on here live and talk to you about it is because it's my last one. All my time is gone. Because you know what I need for the holiday is more dark roux. This is the way that you save time at the holiday. You remember when mom or grandma used to do their holiday turkey, and then they would take the turkey out of the oven and you would have the pan there, and they would pour water on the pan and then put it back in the oven and stir it around and scrape up all the bits off the bottom of the pan. They were deglazing the pan. It's just like the saute method. But I don't know that they knew the word deglazing. They knew it because their mother did it, and their mother did it, and so on. It had been generations past. Nobody ever stopped to ask why. So they deglaze that pan, they get all that nice flavorful liquid, and generally mom and grandma used a cornstarch slurry. They would dissolve cornstarch in water, flavorless again, and then they would thicken that pan gravy with it. Okay, that's good. And cornstarch slurry is very good if you have problems with butter or dairy products or so on. That's really good. There are other ways for vegans, vegetarians to thicken liquids as well. But when it comes to mouthfeel at the holiday, when it comes to all the things that you're going to enjoy at the holiday anyway, you know you're going to be loosening the belt one notch as it is. So why not? Why not add some butter? Add some good mouthfeel to it. And what we're going to do today is make this dark roux that I make all the time. I have dark roux, I have blonde roux in my freezer all the time. And the benefit to you, and the reason that I say that this one little dark cube is thyme, because you don't have to whip up the cornstarch slurry when the turkey comes out. If you make your roux ahead of time, then it quickly thickens any liquid that you would like and makes a really nice deep dark gravy. But here's the thing, most home cooks are afraid of it. Most home cooks are afraid to keep cooking that roux and see it get so dark. I'm going to turn the heat up here because we're going to start cooking in a minute. And get so dark and bubbly like lava and so on. It's really kind of intimidating at first. But we're going to show you how to do it today, how to store a deep dark roux so then you can take your deglazed gravy or the roast beef or anything, quickly drop these cubes into the simmering liquid and have yourself a gravy. So let's go to it. Let's go right to the stove here. And what I've done is I've already made some earlier today. I made some dark roux earlier today, and so I'm going to make a smaller batch just so I can demonstrate to you. So what I've got here is one stick of butter that I cut into cubes to increase the surface area so that it would melt more evenly. And it's cold right now. I've just turned the heat on, but if we started from the beginning, we would melt the butter, we would take it off the heat to go ahead and then stir in some of our flour. How much? I don't know until I start stirring. So let's add a little bit of flour and stir it into that melted butter. All right, whip it in. Let's make it nice and smooth. And this, to me, is too pourable, okay? Now, there's another thing. We're going to cook this till it's really, really dark. So we want to have as much thickening power as possible. So I want to make this as thick a pourable but not ploppable roux. All right, that's the rule of thumb that I'm looking for all my holiday gravies. I'm looking for pourable, not ploppable, okay? So adding some flour. We'll just go ahead and add a little bit more. I'm doing this totally by eye. Now, I know someone's going to ask me what the measurements are for it, and I don't know that I ever knew that. Maybe once in culinary school someone explained it to me. It should be a 50-50 ratio by weight, generally. But, you know, to me it kind of takes the fun out of it if I got to weigh everything. Let's have enough experience and enough fun with this. Now, see, I'm adding only a little bit more this time because I'm getting close to where I want it to be. There we go. What do you think? You think that's good? Give me thumbs up or hearts or something if you think that's good. See, what I'm looking at is it moves. It's pourable, right? But I think I'm going to risk it here. I think I'm going to add just a little bit more because I want this to have as much thickening power as possible. Okay, all right, let's see. Did I do it? Yeah, okay, it's a little ploppy. Okay, see, this is what I mean by ploppable. When it plops off the whisk rather than pours off the whisk. Okay, so I've made that pretty much as thick as I can possibly make it. I've got the burner up here on high, and what I want to do is start cooking the proteins out of this flour. Now, in our basic saute method, sometimes we'll coat an item with flour or starch first and then saute it. It makes a pan roux on the bottom of the pan as you're completing the 9 steps in the basic saute method. Here, I'm going to make my roux separately. So it is going to cook off those proteins, and it's going to cook off a whole bunch more, because you're going to see it go from blonde, and every once in a while I'm going to stir it. You're going to see it go from yellow blonde to white to brown to a really dark brown, and that's what's going to make our gravies really dark and savory. But here is the thing, and one of the reasons that I wanted to add as much flour, as much starch to this as I possibly could, is because dark roux has half the thickening power of a blonde roux. So the darker your roux gets, actually the less thickening power it has. So one cube of my dark roux and an equal size cube of a blonde roux will thicken different amounts of liquid. That's why I tried to put as much starch into this roux as possible, because it's going to be a dark roux. So let's check in with it. Okay, see how we're bubbling along? Right? All the white around the edges here. This is something that would be great for a blonde roux. And I see it's turning from yellow to white. More white around the edges, white around the bubbles. Still a lot of yellow in here. So this is still a little premature. For a blonde roux. That I would keep cooking a little bit more also. And here's the other thing about the fat that you choose. Now, I'm a big fan of using butter for the holidays because of the mouthfeel, because butter melts at 93 degrees Fahrenheit, and your mouth is 98.6 as long as you're healthy and normal and not in Arizona. I just got back from Arizona. It was hot. So it's 98.6. So the butter melts in your mouth, and that's what I always mean by my mouth feel. But there's a taste, there's a sense to it. Animal fats like tallow, bacon fat, they don't really melt in your mouth. And one of the ways that I can prove this, if you've ever eaten a donut, all my friends to the north, up north in Canada, if you've been to a Tim Hortons, you drink coffee with it, right? Well, the hot coffee washes that fat that it's fried in out of your mouth. Do this next time. Get a Tim Hortons donut, one of the old fashions, or Krispy Kremes to my friends in the South, and drink a cold liquid. Get a Coke with it. And tell me the mouthfeel that you'll have. It'll be coated with fat. That's why I like to use butter for my holiday gravies. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't use bacon fat if you want that flavor in it. You could use olive oil if you are diabetic or you have problems with that. Use an unsaturated fat. You can use coconut oil to make your roux as well. If you have a gluten issue, maybe the starch, the flour is not for you, you can use potato starch. But potato starch doesn't need to be cooked to get the proteins out of it. I mentioned arrowroot. I mentioned cornstarch slurries. So it's, again, the method that I want to show you. But the idea here is that I'm prepping for the holidays. And when I say that cube is a time saver, it's because I don't have to do this when it comes to holiday time. So how's our roux doing here? Okay, now it's all white, right? And look at that. Look what happens when I stir it up. There's that brown underneath. So while I was talking, we missed out on a blonde roux, and we are now looking at a brown roux, okay? And I continue to stir because I want it to be heated evenly. And look at this. Now this is some dangerous stuff, ladies and gentlemen. This is molten lava, okay? A very bad burn in the kitchen, almost as bad as the deep fryer burn. Deep fryer burn is the worst burn that you can get in the kitchen. Either that or making fun of someone's haircut. That's the worst burn. You could get in never mind. Yeah, when I was in culinary school, the early year students, we had skull caps, tight to your head. And when I was a first year student, you'd always get ridiculed by the upper class students. They had a tall chef's toque, a 5 or 7 inch, and we hated that until, of course, we became the upperclassmen and we continued the tradition. So a sick burn was nice hat, All right, so our roux has gone from blonde roux to brown roux. We want to get it to a dark brown roux, and past that is a brick roux. And if you were here when we did etouffee, that's what we searched for doing our shrimp etouffee, to try and get it to a brick roux. Okay, more discussion about butter now. Butter is an emulsification. Butter is the combination of 3 ingredients. Butter is butter, fat, milk solids, and water. Now the butter fat has a slight emulsifying property, so it brings together the water and the fat, which would normally be unmixable. So if you want to really help yourself for a good roux, I'm going to give it another stir. Oh boy, wait till I show you this. All right. If you want to really help yourself with a good roux, you can clarify your butter first. Remove those milk solids because those are the things that burn. Clarified butter has a higher smoke point than whole butter because whole butter has the milk solids, and the milk solids burn at a lower temperature. So use ghee for your roux. Use clarified butter if you want. But a pound of whole butter is going to yield 12 ounces of clarified butter. You get a 70% yield when you clarify your butter, with one exception. To all my friends in the UK, because most European butters, and the Kerrygold is the popular one everywhere, most European butters have 85% butter fat. They have a higher concentration of fat, less milk solids, less water. That's why they're more expensive. That's why they're better. Oh my goodness, let's check in our roux. It's almost roux time, boys and girls. Oh, we're starting to get a little burny on the bottom there. Okay, you saw that brownness on the bottom, but here we go. This is what we're looking for. Look how nice and brown, dark brown our roux is getting. And we saw that go from the yellow color of the butter to like a white color when the proteins started to cook out. Then as the sugars in the flour start to caramelize and brown, that's when we've got our nice brown roux that we're looking for. So I can keep cooking this if I want. Make sure that you stir it every once in a while because it will burn on the bottom of the pan. I can keep cooking. I can get it darker and darker. I can bring myself to a brick roux if I want, but I think I'm going to stop right there because this is the type of thing. Oh, I got that moving too. This is exactly the type of thing that I'm looking for, and I don't want to tip the pan that much because, again, this is very, very hot. This is a very dangerous item. So let me show you what I do with it. Generally, I get myself a loaf pan, okay? I get myself a little loaf pan. Do not use anything plastic, okay? And don't use glass either unless you've got something that's Pyrex. It has got to be something metal that you're going to put this in because, again, imagine this is lava and it's just about as hot. You're going to need a piece of parchment paper or something as well because it makes it easier to get it out. And let me show you a really cool trick that I learned about how to make a little liner for my pan. So I've got a square piece of parchment paper. What I'm going to do is cut at a 45-degree angle from the edge toward the center, okay, on each corner. See what I'm doing here? Exactly toward the center at a 45-degree angle. So I'm making these kind of flaps in here. Then when I get my pan and I push that in, these corners, they kind of wrap around each other. You see that? So it makes tight corners so that the items don't, the hot lava roux doesn't seep out. There you go. You see how that works? So, all right, easy here, roux. Ooh, man, that's hot. Okay. I'll give you the second camera. All right. See, here's my pan. And only use a rubber spatula that is heat protected. Let's go ahead and pour that in there. Again, molten lava. Very careful. Let's get the rest of that. Okay, set that aside. And there is our roux that's going to go into the refrigerator or the freezer. But be careful about putting it like on a plastic bottom refrigerator or freezer. That'll melt through there. Let me show you the stuff that I made before, which I put in the freezer to stiffen up. Okay, here's my dark roux. This will stay in the refrigerator, and this will get solid like butter. Actually, it already is a solid like butter. And you can cut these into cubes, put them in a Ziploc bag, and then you've got roux to thicken your liquid. And all you really need to do to thicken the liquid is get a simmering pan of liquid, and here's my roux cube from earlier. star of the show. Roux must always be, or thickening agents must always be opposite ends of the spectrum. So if I have a cold roux, which was a cube that I got out of the refrigerator, then I need a hot liquid. If I have a hot roux, like the one I just made, then I would stir that into cold liquid to thicken the item. All right. Whisking in that roux cube. And I am making instant gravy. So all I had here was some simmering beef broth, which is actually from bouillon. Dropped my roux cube into it. Let it come to a simmer, and let's check my degree of nappe. Still a little thin. All right, but when I run my finger through it, that's a little thin. Let's get another piece of roux. All right, here's the one I just made today. Drop that in there. Yeah. So all we need to do is keep dropping cubes of roux in here until it thickens. That's looking much better now. Bring it to a simmer. Oh my goodness, it smells so good. There's the roux cube. Much better. Sticking to the spoon now. There's my track, my nappe, and that's what you're going to do. That's how you can start doing right now to save your time for the holidays, to save yourself time of trying to do this while the turkey's coming out of the oven, or while the casserole's coming out, while the kids are screaming and somebody's asking where's the bathroom, and all the stress that can go into holiday cooking. Set yourself up for de-stressing. Make roux so you quickly thickens the liquid. We talked about pie crusts in Tuesday Talk Live this week. Go ahead and make your pie crusts ahead of time, because if you're really looking for a process, an entire process to make your holiday cooking that much easier, that much stress-free, I've got a free class for you. I hope you join me. It's the Holiday Cooking Success Class, and all you got to do to join is go to webcookingclasses.com/turkey and register. Hold your spot in the class. I'll be holding these classes for you for the holiday time to help you take the stress, take the anxiety out of cooking, and make this the best holiday meal you've ever had with tricks like this. Make yourself a whole bag of dark roux. That way your gravies are just going to pop up from anything that you want. So I hope you join the class. Go to webcookingclasses.com/turkey and join the Holiday Cooking Success Class. It's absolutely free to you. And if you liked what you saw today, if you know someone who's using a cornstarch slurry or someone whose gravy is always kind of pale, share this video with them. Give us some likes, give us some shares, and we'll change the way the world makes their gravies this year. Hey, it's Chef Todd Moore reminding you that there's a method to your gravy making success. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.